my best not to get kicked off of this one here. All right. Welcome to episode 178 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, recorded September 25th, 2022. My name is Ian, and I'm a hermit fueled by caffeine and stress on Vancouver Island.
And I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and weather nerd.
And I'm Brad. I'm in Eastern Ontario. Consider myself a part-time amateur prepper, constantly trying to better myself.
And I'm Darius. I'm a local mag leader and avid prepper in Southern Alberta.
I'm Pierre. I'm a beard owner and t-shirt artist.
Yeah, you didn't have anything, so I had to do something.
Yeah, sure. I was like, I'll just run with it. We're good.
Yeah.
It's not
if
wrong.
you want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the Tactical Velcro patch. You can find them both at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes to like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good or bad, or just if there's a topic you want us to cover, you can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right. The only reason I said that, Pierre, of course, is because I'm totally jealous because I've got my mini PR going on right now, but it's going to disappear in like a couple days. So,
Yeah. Well, it took me 2 years. 2 years.
Grooming standards.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to all go away. But anyway, we have some OCD content for you tonight in this episode. We're going to start off with some recent news, update our personal preps, then we'll get into the main topic, which is pantry rotation. So, news time. I don't know if you guys heard about this part, but all the big box stores like Walmart and I think it was Target down the States, a couple other ones are all canceling all their orders. I don't know if you guys heard anything about that.
I heard a little bit, but not much more than that.
That's stunningly shocking.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people, when they shop at a lot of these places, it's because they have either excess income or how do you describe it? Like they're budget conscious or whatever. So I think as soon as something goes hiccup in their budget or whatever, I guess they had stimmy money or whatever coming in. It all came to an end down the States here, 2 weeks ago, and then in Canada with the interest rate changes and everything else. And I guess people are having a tougher time affording a house and stuff. So maybe they're just skimping on all the extras. So it seems that it's like across the board, all the big box stores are just kind of saying, you know what, we're not anticipating any sales this fall. So never mind. And so the good news is that took care of the backup of the ships at Long Beach and a couple other places. There's no more backlog of the ships trying to unload stuff because there's nothing coming in. So,
but the only problem I can see with Amazon, that then is supply and demand is going to start kicking in, and the prices are going to start going up because people can't find what they're looking for.
Well, yeah. I mean, I went in for an ironing board to Walmart yesterday, and there's supposed to be like 3 different types, and they only had one, and they only had one of that one. So I was like, I guess I'm getting that one. It's like, yeah, very interesting. So anyway.
Yeah, I've heard in the last week or so that even Amazon is starting to cancel theirs.
Well, Amazon Prime Airlines or whatever, the plane fleet they use to deliver their Prime packages, they're like basically grounding. I guess the FedEx CEO basically said they're anticipating a winter of severe illness and death for his airline. And a bunch of all these other guys are all like, yeah, I think we're kind of screwed here. So even Jamie Dimon there, I guess the CEO of Goldman Sachs, I think it is, he basically said, yeah, we're kind of in hurt right now. So, but I guess not according to any government you'll listen to. But anyway, speaking of which, so over in Lebanon and Syria right now, people are being accused of robbing banks because they're going in there to demand their own money. Banks are saying no, so they're going back in armed and getting their own money out. So they're robbing banks for their own money.
That's horrible.
That's kind of odd.
Well, yeah, I guess because the same thing in China is going right now. Right now, they have some bank runs happening, and they've got a financial tightening. And so if the banks release that money with their fractional reserve banking, they can't lend out more money. So they want to keep whatever they can. And so they're trying to do their best to drag their feet on giving people their own cash. And now people are starting to panic. And so, yeah, people are going in like, here's a gun, here's my bank card, give me my money. my name is Bill Smith, whatever. And it's just like, wow, okay, that's really odd. But I actually made, I guess, other outside North America news, but it wasn't really making big news over here. I just thought it was a very interesting take on people getting worried about leaving cash in the bank, which leads us back to our precious metals episode and crypto episode, I'm sure.
So you're saying it's definitely not a good thing to get into banking in those countries nowadays?
Well, I wouldn't just do deposits and just call it a day. But anyway, so Greg says Amazon just shut down the process of opening one of these facilities.
Actually, it's been more than one facility. I was just going to jump in and mention that I'd heard it somewhere that there was like 20 or 30 of them throughout the United States that they've put a hold on.
Yeah,
they either said they were going to build them, now they're stopping them, or
I skimmed across an article the same as that, probably the same one that I didn't read everything into it, but yeah, they had said 20 some facilities they were going to stop the plans for and sell the land or something and get rid of it. They just stopped it.
Huh. Melissa mentions that they want to have expiry dates on the currency, which brings us to that CBDC idea where they want to have central bank digital currencies, and basically if you don't spend it by the end of the week, you lose it. And they go on to be able to shut off and turn on your money and everything else. That's kind of what they're proposing for the future. I'm like, ugh.
That's definitely living paycheck to paycheck.
yeah.
Yeah, try to keep that velocity of money going up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Anyway.
thanks.
No, I'll pass on that. I'm sure Jeff will cover this a little more later on, but Tropical Storm Ian, I just had to say, like, I'm kind of cheering for it, but not cheering for it.
Oh, you're cheering for it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad because, like, you know, it's a tropical storm, going to be a hurricane, but it, you know, kind of bears my name. So I'm like, go Ian. Yeah. But
Yes, but the true question is it actually going to show up?
That's true. It might not. You know, give or take a 50% chance. It might show up one week, might show up the other. You never know. That's pretty much all I had, though.
Might stall out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's no surprise to anybody around that Hurricane Fiona took a direct hit on eastern Canada and did some pretty catastrophic damage. I'll speak on it more in my weather blurb. I just put a small link to an article in there. There's hundreds of articles, and it was really bad down there. We've got Darius helped me out, but I was away a bit this weekend. But we've got somebody on the Discord who lives down there and was right in the middle of it. And you know, they made a comment that they tried to walk down their driveway and they got to 50 trees across their driveway and they stopped and they weren't even at the end yet. So it's really bad.
Yeah, Hughes had some good pictures up too about trees down in his area, and you could see a lot of the power lines were like leaned right over, so they're about to go. And obviously, you can't depend on the power supply from those things either. And it's definitely been a big
and somebody posted a picture I seen, and as far as the eye could see, it was just the telephone poles were laying down. So they've got a massive job ahead of them to get the infrastructure back up.
And Freya mentions that
where it hit Newfoundland.
Yeah, like I say, I'll have more to say in my blurb about it. But
Freya mentions that's why Ian had been missing so much. He's been working on a weather manipulation machine. Oh,
yeah, it's called chemtrails, right?
Yeah, I can't tell you much about that. It's just part of a tell you that I have to kill you thing. So, but
yeah.
Yeah, I am the weather manipulation machine. Anyway,
and the other article I threw in there, sorry, Darius, just really quick. Some good news, maybe we'll see. We don't like to get into too much politics on this CPP. That's for the other one, but looks like the Canadian government is finally going to lift most of the COVID border restrictions. You're not going to have to be vaccinated anymore. The ArriveCan app is going to become optional. But they just can't let it all go. If you get on a plane or get on a train in Canada, you still got to wear that face diaper.
And I think we're like the last jurisdiction in the world that still does that.
We are. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that all tomorrow starts? Like
The 30th.
30th.
oh, the 30th. Okay.
The order in council or whatever it was to put those restrictions in expires on the 30th, and they're not going to renew it. So
Yeah.
apparently,
Suspended for now.
yeah. So, yeah. There's a. It's funny. There's a court case going on. Somebody's suing the government about that, and it's supposed to go to court this coming Wednesday. And the government's saying, "Well, we're getting rid of it, so just scrap it." But the guy who's the one kind of leading the lawsuit says, "You're not getting rid of it. You're only simply suspending it. So if the courts stop it, and then all of a sudden you decide a month later to bring it back, I got to start the process all over again. And I don't want to do that, so I'm not dropping it." And so, of course, now the government's wanting the judge to drop it, and so we'll have to see what happens.
And I threw one in there. NASA has launched a social media campaign to allow people to help submit names for the new mission to launch a probe to Uranus. It went about as well as you could imagine with the names that were submitted.
It's like a dirty version of Bodie McBoatface, but you can only imagine where we'd go with that.
Oh, it's that and worse.
No.
What's wrong?
You'd think that the people who are launching, right? You'd think the people that were launching shuttles into space would know that that's not a good idea to submit to social media to decide.
Yeah. Come up with like just your own name, just Zeus or something like that, or whatever. Even that would probably be mistaken for something. But anyway, I digress. Shall we move on to what we've done lately for preps?
Before we get ourselves in trouble, yes.
Yes.
I stocked up a little on rice today. It was a good deal on at Food Basics, so I grabbed a couple bags of it. My mudroom floor insulating project continues. Organizing my basement for some winter projects and just room to do them. I replaced a sump pump in the basement last weekend. That was a fun little job. And a little bit of fuel rotation. Other than that, work, and a little bit of more work.
I topped up my fuel stores, my gas and propane last week for a projected severe weather outbreak in our area that thankfully never occurred. So I'm already prepared for the next one.
So were you guys expecting thunderstorms or some sort of like spin off from the storm hitting the East Coast?
No, it was a totally separate system. I mean, everything was in place for it to be a very severe, like multiple tornado outbreak. The humidity was there. All the parameters were there. It just never sparked off, and which is a good thing. I mean, they literally, on the weather people that I follow, had basically from about Godrich north and west out the other side of Peterborough, basically said you're in a good chance of getting some pretty wicked weather, including tornadoes. And like I said, all the parameters were there. It just didn't spark off for some reason, which is good.
Yeah, I think you guys had enough this summer so far.
Yeah.
I don't think we're done, but.
Which is interesting because we're already past the first day of fall, so like this should officially end, right? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. As for myself, handily enough, we were doing a pantry inventory today, and actually the last few days. So kind of running stuff around and reorging everything, which is quite timely for the episode. Forgot to mention that I picked up some surplus boots last week because my Army surplus store had finally reopened, which was good. Brad just reminded me, I think, of window installation. We have a sunroom that's kind of no longer a sunroom type of thing, so we decided to insulate some windows. And in anticipation of basically changing them out and changing the outside of the house and all that stuff next year. Did a propane top up just to make sure we're all topped up for the winter. That's our backup heating and our backup cooking and primary cooking too. Let's see here, did another Jenny run just to get it serviced up for the fall. All the exposed metals on like hot exhaust things and the splitter and everything else that all got rusted up over the summer. I decided to paint all those up, make sure they're good for the heavy rain season. And then took a bunch of tarps, covered up all the wood piles, and little office setup. So I'm just into my new office here, like as of last week. So started setting up the reloading press and kind of getting stuff kind of reorged here. I just kind of piled it in there last week, and when I have a chance, I just kind of get to it and kind of get a little more utilitarian setup. But anyways, slow progress. That's about it for me, Darius.
And about the only thing I did besides working nonstop all weekend is I went in and had the chance to sight in my rifle this past week. So went down to a range and put about 40 rounds through that. And everything's working perfectly.
Right on. That was a 308, right?
Good.
Yes.
Right on. Cool. All right. I guess time to move on to the main topic here. So why are we talking pantry rotation? Well, first of all, I guess buying in bulk saves you money. So hopefully we all, when we see those sales on rice and stuff, we grab them when we can. And, we end up with piles of rice, and we got to figure out how to make sure we don't waste any of it. So because I don't know what you guys, but, before I started getting organized with this stuff, I was getting to the point where I had 10 bags of rice, and I was eating the newest one first, and then there's one that had been sitting there for 7 years, and I was like, oh yeah, now it's all kind of manky and gross. I don't want to touch it anyway. And I mean, how many people have that can of cream corn sitting in the back of their pantry that they haven't touched since they moved in and everything else too, right?
Yeah, got a couple of those.
Who eats cream corn, really?
Shepherd's pie, buddy.
Seriously, I don't.
Shepherd's, oh yeah, that's a good point. Shepherd's pie actually would kind of be a natural for it, wouldn't it? I have a traumatic childhood experience. One of our neighbors used to have us over for Grey Cup Sundays type of thing, and one of the side dishes was always cream corn. Like it was like clockwork, and they felt that everybody needed their own personal can of it, so it was kind of heaped on your plate, and you were like, after a while. So yeah. If my dad's laughing, or if dad's watching, he's probably laughing right now because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, pretty much. So two schools of thought on this. I guess you watch the old movies like what's it, Battle of the Bulge and everything else, and they're like, let's hit the supply dump. That stops them cold in their tracks, type of thing, right? So a lot of people are really hesitant to put all their stuff in one space. So they have 15 cans of peanut butter in one place versus the usual prepper technique of squirreling a jar of peanut butter underneath the couch and one in the shed outside and one buried in the backyard and everything else. But the problem is it's easy to lose track of stuff that way. Plus, if somebody were to break in or seize your stuff or whatever, it's easier for them to take it all if it's in a supply dump.
Wait, you bury peanut butter?
Shh. Metal detectors can't find it. Duh.
Very true. Very true.
My dog
squirrels sure can.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think my dog would have that dug up in about 15 minutes. First of all, I'd have to have soil on my property, which I don't. It's just rock piles. So, but then of course the dog would, dig it up in a heartbeat and be like, "Thanks, dude. That was awesome." Yeah, so that's the problem is right, guys, because I don't know what you guys, when I first started prepping, I would have a box of 22 in the underneath the carpet and one over there in the paper shredder and everything else, and before you know it, you don't realize that you have never enough 22. What I'm saying, you have lots of 22, you don't realize it too, right? So it's always nice to kind of keep track of that stuff. Can you really have too much 22?
Probably not.
Nah. Anyway. So what I'm trying to do is avoid excessive duplication, and or just she helps you realize that you maybe don't have enough of some supplies. During COVID, there, I think we were talking about when COVID first hit, and we were doing the toilet paper panic runs and stuff. We're talking about all that stuff, and I realized at the time my wife was away; she was on a trip when COVID hit there, and I only had one jar of peanut butter in the entire house, and I was like, I don't think I can get through the apocalypse on one jar of peanut butter. So, but I thought we had lots, right? So I went to the closet. And I was like, and I kind of opened it up. I was like, oh, this alone warrants a trip to Costco. And since I've mentioned peanut butter twice in the last 5 minutes, you know it's a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So,
and that's where tracking it a little bit, I guess, and just having a piece of paper somewhere or something and knowing how much inventory you have takes a bit of the guesswork out of. I mean, if you've squirreled a bunch away somewhere, maybe you lose track, but
Well, that's the problem too. Is like you can't have a pantry rotation without some sort of inventory list, right? Because my brain's not that good, and trying to remember all those little hidey holes for the peanut butter is a problem, right? So now we're butt up against the other prepper mindset of OPSEC, right? So it'd be great to have a pantry inventory on Google Docs and accessible from your iPhone and your laptop and everything else. By the same token, you're basically just giving a copy to Bill Gates and crew. So many do that. So like some guys want to have a pen and paper version like hidden away and taped on the underside of the desk or something, and other people want to have it like digital for ease of access. But so you have to kind of balance the OPSEC versus the amount of labor it takes to do the paper one when you have to keep changing it, and the accuracy. A lot of times you'll forget to erase it or add to it or whatever. So inventory becomes, I think, key more than anything else if you want to rotate your stuff accurately. Because you guys go to the grocery store and you see those Campbell's soup can things where they have like the racks and they kind of slide down and you put the newest on top and then you grab the oldest off the bottom and stuff. And
yep,
it's great for when you're in a grocery store and selling the stuff, and it would also be great if you had those in your thing. But I don't think they even sell those soup racks, do they?
I don't know, but I'd like to get some.
Fairly sure.
Yeah, I never.
Fairly sure with the way the world works. Fairly sure with the way the world works for 3D printing now, you could probably find them pretty quick.
That's true.
Hey,
or AliExpress, whatever. Yeah, I'm sure. But because that would be a way to do it for sure. But of course, it's extra cost. But yeah. So if you're gonna pack away stuff in totes, like go to Costco and get those big black and yellow totes, and if they all look the same and you really don't know what's in them. But you just start throwing stuff in them. Everything from like plate carriers to freaking like itchy band noodles. Like it'd be nice to know what's in each tote rather than having to open it up each time and guess. It's like Christmas, right? So I guess as part of the rotation, you should probably have a designator of some sort on your tote, whether it's just a number, color code, whatever works for you, safe word. If you want to do that. But yeah, if you're gonna have everyone designated, just link it to a contents list so you can update it a little more easily. If you add an extra itchy band noodle or handmade whip or whatever, just to your totes, you got to make sure you keep all that stuff up to date. Told you to slip that in there somewhere. So yeah. What's that? Oh, missed it. Anyways, date of packing should be on the Mylar. So if you do wrap stuff in Mylar, whether it be pasta or rice or whatever, like you want to make sure you put the date you actually put it in there, and so you have an idea of how long it's been sitting there and what's in it. Or if you're going to do a pre-canned stuff like Campbell's soup, you want to have it kind of organized by date of expiry. So the whole idea being is that you want to eat the oldest first and put the newest towards the back or something, right?
Yeah, and if you're packing your stuff in Mylar, do it in a size that you would be able to consume in a few days as opposed to like a week. Opening a big 10-pound bag of rice and before you could eat it's no good anymore. It starts to go rancid or anything like that. Put them into smaller bags and then, you open it up, it's gone in a few days, and you like you say, eliminate the waste.
Well, yeah, because Bryden sells his 1 gallon ones, right? Sorry, go ahead, Darius.
Yeah. I said, unless you're Ian, and then that 10-pound bag of rice is gone in a week.
Yeah, well, it's my family's go-to, right? So I like to put everything in 1 gallon things, like Jeff says, because if you open up the 10 gallon Mylar, all that rice starts going bad at the same time, or pasta or whatever. But if you have the 1 gallon at a time, it's like less to start that rotting process down. And it's just easier to move stuff around too. But it's in smaller packages, so when you get old and crinkly like me, it's like easier to lift, and easier to store and organize too. Especially if you're putting it under the carpet, it's like smaller package, less lumpy that way.
Right. So out of the live chat there, and a question from Melissa. She says, freeze your rice first. It kills any of the potential bugs. Do you keep it frozen, or do you then unthaw it, put it into a Mylar bag, and seal it?
But it's two schools of thought. So whether it's, especially with flour and pastas, and especially if they come from overseas, obviously the weevils are a problem. So you freeze it for up to 3 weeks to kill all the eggs and all the active bugs if there is any, and then it's fine. It's good to go. The other theory being that you put a oxygen absorber in there, and any bugs, no matter how small, still need some sort of oxygen. So if there's no air in there, they're not going to breed and reproduce and everything else in the mylar.
Okay, but if you let it unthaw, does that moisture not then cause problems or?
Yeah, you can't just pull the wheat out of the freezer and immediately throw it in mylar and everything else. You come back up to temperature. It's kind of like when you go hunting with your rifle or your bow and you come back in and it's covered with condensation. You don't just shove it in a rifle sock and throw it in the closet, right? You got to let it kind of come back up to temperature before you. Same idea.
Okay.
Melissa also points out that people would wrap stuff individually, measure out for what they consume in a meal. We do that with a lot of the pre-made stuff for the freezer and stuff. Generally, I do kind of a week's worth or whatever, that 1 gallon package. Maybe it's a couple weeks, whatever, but it's just like smaller usages. Certainly more utilitarian, I think, than a large bag. And she says that keeps the flour in the freezer and takes out what we need. But that works too. I mean, it's also going to degrade less, especially if it's got the husk still in there. If it's not like pure white flour, if it's the brown flour, it's going to have stuff that's going to go rancid.
Yeah, we just have a freezer and we just throw everything in and take it out as we need, fill up a small container, let it unthaw, and carry on. Especially if it's not something that you're going to pack away for long-term storage. I wouldn't find it worth the while to put that in Mylar bags and 5-gallon pails just to be used up, within the year. Let's use those for long storage preps. But so we just keep the oven bags in the freezer to just take care of itself. Keeps it fresh.
Yeah, I guess the same thing. The idea is the wheat berries before they're ground would last longer than ground wheat too, but same idea. She also mentions to soak your rice before you're cooking. 100% agree. You gotta get that little starch bit off, so you kind of rinse it a couple times, get that white hot dog water off there, and then you cook it properly.
White hot dog water. Ugh.
That's basically what it looks like.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But anyway, that's mostly the glutinous rice business that comes off of it. So actually, it's less sticky if you rinse that stuff off too, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the Pantry Rotation. So obviously, some tools that are going to help you complete the task. Shelves. So Costco item 1600205 for all those the Costco people. There's relatively cheap shelving units out there that can hold up to 1,000 pounds per shelf. The running joke in the family here is the wife figures that if it's got a cubic meter of space or however much cubic space there is, doesn't matter what you're packing, whether it's depleted uranium or feathers. It's like as long as you can fill it, it's good to go. So we like to get the high strength stuff so it doesn't create some sort of overstressed situation and come tumbling down. So this shelving unit that I put the number for, it's really good. So 1,000 pounds per shelf times 5. And it's $150 now. It used to be 105 or something, but of course, inflation that doesn't exist. So if you kind of get a couple of those going, it's a nice thing to help. I would put little racks up along the back and the sides to make sure that when you start pushing the cans into the excess, they don't go spilling out the sides or the back. Ask me how I know.
How do you know, Ian?
Well, remember when we were talking about wastage? Because that's a problem, especially when you have glass jars and they're above the bottom layer, and you start pushing shit in until it goes off the back, and and of course the stuff in the back is the newest, so that's always the best ones to spill onto the ground, right?
Oh yeah.
It's fantastic.
They haven't aged yet.
Yeah. Well, it means they stink less when they hit the ground, at least.
Yeah,
true. Yes.
Anyway, so if you're going to shove stuff on shelves as part of your rotation, you should have the same convention used for each thing as which one to use first. What's the front left can is what I'm going to use first, and kind of work my way to the right, then back lay it one layer and starting left to right or whatever. However you want to do it, up, down, sideways, I don't care, but just use the same process each time so everybody knows which one to use first. That way, the spouse doesn't grab the maple syrup that you bought last week versus the one from 6 years ago. Still lasts forever anyways, doesn't it?
Yeah. Similar to honey.
Yeah, pretty much.
Absolutely.
The other thing too is if you want to organize it by either types of food, whether it's all your starches here or specific meals, this is all your breakfast stuff, all your lunch stuff, whatever, all your oils, whatever. Just so it's kind of an easy access thing if you're going to put it all in one place and not hide it underneath the carpet. And the other thing, ask me how I know again. Lightest stuff on the top, heaviest stuff on the bottom for CFG purposes. You got the center of gravity is a thing. And we do live in earthquake country where we are here, so we don't want to have the glass up on the top shelf and, have hilarity ensue when we get like a very minor tremor still. And feathers on top, bricks on the bottom, good to go. It won't move. So
Yeah, basically.
I also had I was looking up some other organizing stuff, and somebody had put a shelf system in that they had all of their non-liquid stuff on top, liquid stuff on the bottom. In that liquid organization, all the cleaning chemicals on the bottom of the liquid. Like if you had 4 shelves, your 2 bottom is all liquid. The bottom is cleaning supplies. The upper of the lower shelves is food supplies. So nothing chemical would spill onto edibles. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Absolutely, yep.
Let's just get a couple comments again. Home Depot wood and brackets, they look amazing.
Yes, they do.
Fun fact, when I lived in Barrie there, the first shelving unit I made was out of excess fence boards. And of course, it was great for the size to keep stuff from spilling off the edges, but the middle of that bracket looked like a swayback horse. It wasn't really thick enough.
I'll send you a picture of what she's talking about afterwards.
Okay.
We have them. No, well, we have them in our basement and all across the house. So yeah, we buy those. What are they like? I think they're
Pine
8x10. Yeah, they're just the pine boards. They're 12-inch pine boards and the 8x10 brackets, and put them in each stud. You can moderate the height of them. Then we've got nice boxes that cans fit in nicely, like parts boxes like you'd find or whatever, just for our day-to-day stuff. And they look good. Everything stays clean, compared to if you don't have the room to get a nice 8-foot shelf in there. You can make your own little 2-3 foot shelf on a wall, 4 or 5 up, fairly cheap. Little, you need to have a few tools, but nothing crazy to make. They'll get you by for sure.
Yeah, I think if you don't break your chop saw doing lumber and you have a cordless drill, you can probably clap those together fairly fast.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you have spare wood around, right? Like if you have a lot of times you can pick up the spare wood from construction sites, that not the fresh stuff, but the stuff they're done with.
Dumpster diving.
Yeah. Anyway,
or if you go to any of the supply shops that have the 10,000 pallets that they're just willing to give you as many as you're willing to take, strip those down, paint them or sand them and paint them.
Yeah, the roofing.
That's lots of free wood.
Yeah, the roofing guy.
Find those in Ottawa. Find those in Ottawa. An area right now is impossible. There are so many people collecting them to take them apart and use as kindling, or to make furniture out of them, or there's a huge industry now in returning them. Some of these guys get $5-6 a pallet, and they fill their 5 tons full of them. Make a couple $100 in a day, plus your regular day job.
Yeah. Man, wow. I wish we had that up here where I'm at right now. They can't get rid of them fast enough. There's, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of every warehouse on the street.
Sounds like we did that Seinfeld pop bottle return trick, where they cross state lines, and but same thing here. Like the roofing supply guy can't get rid of them fast enough, and so whenever I get a chance, I'm driving by. It's like I just grab a couple on the way home or whatever. But over in Europe, same thing. They're using those, planning to heat their houses with them because they got no gas coming in. So that's a thing. This also mentions that you can buy the that's the wrong one. Mark the date of purchase on the items helps as well. Yes and no. I'm going to disagree with Melissa for a second. Holy crap. Because it doesn't really matter for me when I buy them. It just matters to me either when they expire or when I pack them, I guess, because, if you bought them a week before expiry or a year before expiry, it really doesn't matter. But at least I think the expiry is kind of a nice, consistent use by date or whatever, like that you can kind of work around. But date of purchase just adds work for me. I don't know. My wife does that. She actually she marks the date of when we open something to see when we actually use it up, and then see how long it takes us to go through AJAR, and that has how we figured our yearly usage. So whether it be like the laundry soap or whatever, and it's easy to figure out your yearly usage if you figure out how long it takes to go through one. But that's about it.
My mom used to do that with our canned stuff. She would write the best before date or whatever you want to call it, would write that on the top, and it's a quick look at it. You could see the date. Oh, wait a minute. That the best before is like a week away. We better use that up. And, absolutely. There's, if you've made your own Mylar bags or whatever, absolutely, there's no problem with saying it was packed on this day or whatever. But yeah, I found that quite convenient.
Mm-hmm. Pierre, help me with this one. Says she also mentions you can buy the breaks that you add to the towel rack, and you can hang things from this as well.
I think brackets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, brackets is what she means.
I gotcha.
Typos. Yeah.
There you go. Makes more sense.
Yes.
Cool. Let's see here. What else we got? Other tools. You're going to need, besides shelving, you're going to need the totes and a means of labeling. So people with label makers, rejoice, I guess. I personally don't have a label maker that I use generally because those label cartridges are like stupid expensive. So yeah, green masking tape from my leftover painting jobs and a Sharpie marker, so I can rip it off. It's not like same with you're rotating the gas or marking totes or something, just so you can rip it off and change it up if need be or whatever. I just find it's easier to do it that way.
My label maker is my wife.
Hopefully she's not within earshot, is she?
Yep, she's in the next room.
Oh, okay, that's bold move, Cotton. We'll see how that works out.
Brad may or may not be here.
I go with what you were about to say the first time.
Yeah.
I go with what you were about to say the first time. It's the black totes with the green duct tape and black Sharpie.
Yep.
Anyway, let's see here. Small step stool. So for the vertically challenged among us, small step stool to get up those upper shelves, so you don't like kind of reach and pull and bring about 3 things down with you. So even if it's just like a foot or whatever, just something to get a little bit extra kind of reach around, for lack of a better term. And then you can reach stuff towards the back of the shelves if need be, if you're putting stuff away in the back, just to help prevent that wastage again, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned the overfill rails on the side, and the back especially. Like we've got one of ours up against a window, so of course, if it goes on the back, it kind of hits the window too, which even makes it worse. And then other than that, I guess the effort to keep the inventory up and the correction process going often. We do it twice a year ourselves, but since I'm about to become an absentee husband and father, I thought I'd just get it done before I left. And so keep up with that. I guess I should stay on top of things. That's pretty much all I had for pantry rotation. Anybody else?
I think those are all good things. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I don't really have anything to add. If anybody in the live chat's got anything that they think we've missed or have any other ideas, let us know.
Definitely all good ideas. I got plenty of supplies here, just they're not all organized and they're not all in one spot. And like Ian, you were saying, just this week you were starting to organize. Well, that's been something when we were talking about this, about doing this episode, this topic, I've been kicking myself in the pants for the last, year or so of getting into my stock room and organizing everything. So this is one that I'm going to go back and look at all these show notes again and again and again. And like I said, I've got a couple of other articles and ideas written down and see what I can't come up with. So this was educational to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their own way of doing things. Like even for like nuts and bolts and stuff out in the shed, I try and keep like the same size of package. So like peanut butter jars or whatever. See peanut butter again. But if you got some way to keep like a uniform container so that it's easier to stack or easier to, I guess, keep a level surface going if you're going to stack it too high or whatever. Anything helps, whether you're using the same storage units or just the same conventions or something. It'll all help over time. So
we were talking earlier about those soup can organizers.
Yeah.
Greg threw up into the other chat there of a link on Amazon, but it's a US site. So I found it on the Canadian site. There's a couple of different options. Well, quite a few different options there. Nothing over $50 for holding, say, 18 to 48 cans. soda can organizers and different racks and over the door racks and whatnot on Amazon for Canadian site. Thought that was pretty good.
Biggest problem with the can rotation system is I just end up drinking more cans of whatever, so that's a problem. I'm trying to avoid that. Anyway,
Self-control.
Depending on the can you have, they might fit in those. But also a thing we've noticed is, we've gone out way before the COVIDs, said, okay, let's go get some stuff. And you just walk around, you're like, oh, that's a good deal. That's a good deal. And then you pick up all the supplies and everything. And then you get home and a year later, you realize you haven't touched, 20 of the 60 cans you bought because you're like, yeah, it was a good deal, but I was like, it was kind of a waste. So, if you go out, try and make sure it's going to be stuff you eat. Like, we have a 9-year-old daughter that's almost 10. So, I mean, she loves peaches. So you buy a bunch of peaches and then 2 days later, they don't like peaches anymore. So, keep that in mind on your preps that, make sure it's going to be stuff you actually will eat and you can throw into your regular rotations to consume. So it's not just sitting there for years and years and years.
Well, so far we've discovered that we vastly overestimated the amount of tuna and Libby's or Heinz beans that we eat because it's like they keep multiplying in the closet because every time there's a sale on tuna or brown beans that we grab a case, but then our consumption is almost nothing. So it's like, okay, I think we need to just tone that the F down because especially tuna, like I thought that'd be something we use more of. No.
So I'm not I don't eat it. My daughter doesn't really like it. The wife likes it, but I mean, the 2 dogs just love it, right? Like you crack a can of that, the 2 dogs are there just drooling. So, we've been adding them to the food. Like, hey, we got to get rid of food. So it's like, give it to the dogs, got some rice to cook and everything. So yeah, we give it to the dogs, right? Like, so we add a bunch of stuff that they'll eat. Like we go to the dollar store and they'll have like a liver pate, which, not for me, but I'm like,
should not go to the dogs. It should come to me.
No, but buy 2 of those cans, and I can feed my dogs at least one day with a bunch of rice, right?
Yep. Let's say that we do the same thing with mackerel because once in a while the wife gets a hankering for some canned mackerel or whatever. But yeah, the dogs love it, and like stuff from the dollar store, it's amazing. We actually fed the dogs some not expired, but we'd canned some bear meat from the bear I tagged a few years ago, and it was like, it's been a few years in the can. I was like, I don't want to throw it away, but I don't want to eat it anymore at this point. So I was like, dogs loved it. Anyway.
No.
So anyway.
It was useful.
It was useful. So Aqua Run Girl has a question. She says, how do you feel about dehydrating food? Well,
it's really cool.
Well, I think you're the only person that's done it, right? Because I haven't touched one myself.
Yeah, I mean, we've dabbled in it, myself and Mel. We don't have a crazy amount of experience. Like I was saying prior to the show, we ended up with 2 of them instead of 1. We had to pay for both, but I mean, whatever. We said we'll figure it out. So we've just kind of been reading up on it and tried it out one year. Just, hey, put a bunch of blueberries, raspberries. We did carrots, we did celery, bunch of stuff, and we kind of just put it in containers and put it on the shelf for, I would say it was a good 9 months to a year. Barely went bad. Still had flavor. So we got rid of it. And, so now we're going to bust it back out. But so we don't like doing it a lot in the winter. One of the big reasons is it's a dehydrator, so it applies a bunch of heat. We don't have AC in the house. So, I mean, when it's 30 degrees out and we've got like 2 dehydrators going, makes the house like roast like there's no tomorrow. So now that fall weather's getting here, if we're gonna try that back up, and maybe we'll spread the good news and the bad news that we've had dabbling with that. But it's pretty cool what you can do with it.
I think if you we tried just dehydrating some local berries and stuff, and then vacuum sealing them afterwards, and they lasted a couple of years that way. Because of course, take the moisture out and hopefully,
100%,
it'll last forever. But like freeze dried would be the ultimate, of course. But like dehydrating is it's a good thing, especially if you have to make it portable. But sometimes some of the stuff, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Like depending on what you're dehydrating, right? Like dehydrating brass, 100% love doing it all the time. But this saves me a lot of work. But I think the wife she's got an Excalibur. Is that the brand dehydrator? But
Yeah.
I've never touched one myself.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty cool. It's a different process. I mean, yeah, freeze drying. I would love to get one, but I mean, those things are crazy expensive and all that stuff. But dehydrator, you can buy different level ones, like just the beginner one. You might not be able to like industrialize yourself and do whatever with it, but I don't know. It's not a bad option. We didn't mind it. It's good for little desserts and baking. Put some raspberry powder in, but it's fresh raspberries you dehydrated yourself. It's pretty good. We did that with pancakes and all that stuff. So
that's really good.
On average, Pierre, how long would it take to, say, dehydrate a couple trays of sliced up tomatoes? What are you looking at? An hour? A couple hours?
No, 5 to 8 hours, I think it is for tomatoes.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it all depends on the water content because you're trying to get rid of the water and it only goes so much. So it's all temperature regulated, dependent on fruits, veggies, and your meat, right? Because you can dehydrate meat, so you can make your own jerky as well and all that stuff. So yeah, it all fluctuates on and then if they recommend having an 1/8 of an inch tomato slice and you put a quarter, well, your dehydrate time is going to go up at that point because the water content, right? So it's a little complicated, and then we did some screw ups and stuff like that, but it's just time consuming and a learning curve. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you buy all your veggies or your good fruits in the winter or in the summer, when you can buy 2 packs of raspberries for like $3, but your raspberries are like $8 in the winter. If you buy that and you've got a space where you don't mind extra heat going, you can do all that, and then you can still have nice semi sort of fresh fruit over the winter.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. She says you can make your own spices with that, as well as probably your own tea. If you had some dehydrated mint or something, you could make your own teas of sort. That's cool. Nice little squirrel moment for us there. I think that's pretty much it. So I guess podcast challenge time. I guess I'll just handle that one. Start a rotation or organization system or inventory of your supplies. Figure out what works for you to keep track of your stock. Saves you money, saves you time, and maybe saves your skin in case of something going sideways to make sure you know what you have. So start an inventory system. That's your podcast challenge. Your weather blurb, Jeff?
Sure. So as I mentioned before, Hurricane Fiona hit Eastern Canada with pretty catastrophic results. It was the strongest in terms of low pressure storm in Canadian history. Better than Juan and Dorian and those. It had a lower pressure, which the lower the pressure, the stronger the storm. More than 415,000 Nova Scotia customers, or about 80% of the province, was out of power at any given time. Prince Edward Island basically was their grid was more or less knocked out for the whole province. They were down at about 95% without power, and there's still quite a lot without power. New Brunswick had 44,000 people also without power. Port aux Basques, Newfoundland was the hardest hit area. The town is on the southwest tip of Newfoundland. Just over 4,000 residents. More than 20 homes were destroyed. The cost of the damage is going to be obviously in the millions. Sadly, a 73-year-old woman who lived very close to the ocean and decided not to evacuate, was washed away with her house, and her body was located in the sea. All I'm going to say to that, folks, is I feel obviously very bad for her and her family and whatever, but she had no reason to be there. You're that close to the water. You've got a historic storm coming. Put your pride in your back pocket and get out of Dodge. Don't put yourself in that spot, and then you're putting the first responders in a spot of potentially wanting them to come and rescue you. And I don't know. I feel bad. Like I said, terrible for her and her family, but it should have never happened, and she shouldn't have been there. So
even recovery efforts are going to put guys at risk, right? If they're going to have to go out in a power boat during like 40-foot waves just to go recover a 73-year-old body, I'd be kind of pissed off as a first responder. So it's like totally unnecessary, right? And yeah, sad but unnecessary, like you said.
Yeah, I've said for a long time, if your actions cause a first responder or whatever to get injured, killed, or come after you, that they should be coming after you. You know, you should be paid. First of all, you should be paying the recovery bill. If it costs $100,000 to put that helicopter in the air to go and rescue you, you should be paying for that. You had a chance to get yourself out of danger, and you didn't do it. So, anyways, I'm not going to go anymore. I'll go on a rant, and I'll get us kicked off. So,
I can't be the only one doing these things.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say Port aux Basques. Isn't that where the ferry from Nova Scotia lands as well?
Yes,
yep, it is.
And apparently the dock is gone.
So that my next question was, what's Newfoundland going to do for supply trucks?
Well, there's three different docks that the ferries can pull into. So Port aux Basques isn't the only one.
Oh, good. Okay.
Port aux Basques is the shortest one, though, right?
Yeah, it's the closest one to the mainland.
But with winter coming, aren't the other ones shut down in the winter? Because I remember going to Newfoundland a long time ago, and the only one we could take because it was winter and everything was, I think, Port aux Basques. You can go out to like the one right by St. John's or whatever. That was only open during the summer. I don't know if that's changed, but I mean, we're also talking like 13, 14 years ago.
Well, and we're also talking, this is, like Jeff said, a historic storm. I can see them keeping those lanes open to make sure that supplies keep coming in to the island.
Yep.
So, no, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say, like they said there was, again, like the catastrophic damage. There was catastrophic damage to the port. I mean, a bunch of these. I'm not sure. It's in the article, and I should have put it in the blurb, but it's in the article link that I put in. I believe. Well, no, yeah, it says more than 20 homes were destroyed. Several of them, the erosion of the shoreline was so bad that they just dropped into the sea. So, I mean, we're talking 20, 30, 40 feet of erosion from the shoreline, if not more.
Well, yeah, that's pretty extreme. So, and yeah, well, we heard from you, so we know he's okay. But yeah, I'm sure he's a busy boy right now, doing recovery efforts and stuff. So,
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, that's quite the historic storm for sure.
And as you mentioned, Ian, your namesake is right now churning in the Central Caribbean, and it's expected to peak out at a Cat 4 hurricane within probably the next 4 to 5 days. The anticipated landfall is going to be in the panhandle of Florida, somewhere up in the northern part, but it's going to skirt the west end of Cuba and come around. At this point, there's still a little bit of uncertainty as to how much rain and whatever, but probably most of the west side of the state is going to be predominantly affected by it. And it's funny that while Canada waits until after the storm to declare states of emergency, and they said today that I believe it was Prince Edward Island asked for help from our military. You knew this was coming. Why didn't they do that ahead of time and have the boots on the ground, or at least have the boots ready to go? Florida has already put out a state of emergency, and the governor's declaration frees up emergency protective funding and activates members of the National Guard. Why didn't we do that?
Yeah, that's for the other CPP, I think.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is too, yeah, like, I mean, once again, you saw articles of people like, do the last minute panic grab, which they do in Florida too, I know. But I mean, like, still after COVID and everything else, like, and they had plenty of days of notice, and sure of like the storm's 6 hours out, these people are still shopping at the grocery store for last minute food. I'm like, really? Like,
yep.
Don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've thrown a link in there for AccuWeather. It's got the projected storm track and the timing and all that stuff on it. So have a look at it, and if you're down that way or anywhere in that area, I'm sure it's that's where it's going to make landfall. But it's just going to keep going up the coast. If you're in Georgia or maybe even into the Carolinas, you're probably going to get something out of it. So be aware of that. If you're in that area, just because it may be a tropical storm when it hits you, doesn't mean there's not going to be damage.
Well, hopefully that means Greg's driving to his bug out location right now. So. All right. Any shout outs, anyone?
Yeah, I'm going to shout out to Darius. He's on here, but with this whole storm thing going on, and of course, weather's my big thing, and I ended up having a conference this weekend, and I was more or less out of the loop for 2 days. And, Darius kind of jumped in on the Discord and was reaching out to people and talking to them back and forth. And, that's what we need to do here as a community, is work together and be there to help each other out. So I appreciated him kind of grabbing the ball and running with it.
Right on. I got one for the Island Mentor as well here. The guy's pretty much taught me about 90% of what I know here on the island. So, he unfortunately had a bit of an industrial accident yesterday and damaged his hand. So hopefully he's healing up fast. Anyway.
Oh, not good.
No, not good at all. So anyway, let's see here. Deal of the week.
Yes. So if you are up for trying out grinding your own meat and making your own pepperettes and sausages, they got a meat grinder at Cabela's for 30% off, I think it is. Yeah, 30% off. It's not a great heavy duty one. I personally have this one. I've done lots of ground deer and everything with it. It's a good little thing, at least to try it out, see if it's something you want, and then maybe you can look at spending a lot more than $70 for a heavy duty industrial one, but it's a good start. I've got no complaints with it. Just take your time. It's fun.
Yeah, I think just like blenders and stuff, you can never have a big enough one, but I think if you're going to try and dip the toe in the pool, it's a good way to do it for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Email reviews.
So we have an email review here from John. He says, so I came upon my old Boy Scout manuals from the 60s and early 70s. There is, of course, a huge amount of great bushcraft and survival skill information inside. But one thing that jumped out at me is there are no stoves anywhere. No mention of stoves, no photos of stoves, and no reference to stoves in cooking directions. All cooking is done over an open fire. After pondering this for a bit, I decided a few things. Fire starting in a survival situation is a tier 1 skill, and it deteriorates over time. Campfire cooking is also a necessary skill, and it too deteriorates over time. When was the last time you cooked your entire meal over an open fire, and do you roast it in the flames? Must you wait until there are coals, or can you bury it in the coals? I'm sure that even the newer generations can impale a hot dog on a branch and cook it over a fire, and also apply the theory to cooking fish. But campfire cooking, done right, also needs tools. Who has a pot in which you can cook a meal for 4 people? I have visions of the youngsters trying to cook a damp squirrel in their 750 milliliter titanium cups. Many on this podcast must have experience with a cast iron skillet, but who has used a Dutch oven? I resolved to skip the stove and only cook on an open fire in future trips. Oh, how much time will that add to the task of cooking? Wood gathering, fire building, fire tending, actually cooking, serving, and cleaning all the pots and pans and utensils. Continue your superb podcast.
Okay, let's get the Dutch oven jokes out of the way.
I'm just going to jump right out here. One of the unique opportunities I had when I was growing up was I was part of an 18th century reenactment group. We were at the time period we were reenacting was the British Redcoats. And everything we did while we were at the campouts was based off of a cast iron Dutch oven and cast iron frying pans. So I've cooked everything from stews to handmade apple pies on cast iron over an open fire.
Nice. Did you ever use a reflector oven?
No.
Do you know what it is?
I've seen them used in such, in like the stone prop ovens and such. I've never used any of that myself. Instead, we mostly use the cast tripods.
Yeah.
So the tripods are surprisingly cheap. Princess Auto and even Cabela's, I think, has a cheap set that goes on sale quite often.
Yeah.
For the Dutch oven, which we have as well. But full disclosure, I have not. Okay, I got to do the Dutch oven joke. I've given Dutch ovens, but never mind. Anyways, okay, I couldn't resist. Yeah, so we've had the Dutch oven. We've never actually used it that often. I think we tried once or twice. I was like, yeah, it works, but it's just time, right? We don't have time to sit there and play with it all the time. And of course, it's going to sound horrible, but yeah, like when things go sideways, you're going to run out of propane, then we'll worry about learning how to use it. It's horrible, but that's just kind of the way it's gone.
Yeah.
It's actually very hard to keep them conditioned too, I find, because like we're having to fight rust on ours right now quite a bit. That's just because of the moisture here, I think, more than anything else. So first things first, I can't, having been in Beavers, Cubs, and Scouts myself, I still can't believe they actually let us play with fire as often as they did.
Yeah.
Could say we're all like pre-adolescent freaking boys and running around with freaking matches and like strike anywhere matches and throwing them everywhere, and like we didn't catch forests on fires, and it was crazy anyway, but it was good. So yeah, no, 100%. We did not use the stove in Boy Scouts, and so I guess campfire cooking is definitely a skill, but we did everything from s'mores in foil to potatoes in foil. We've done we've actually done we've done the lattice work fish cooking. So you basically do the fillet of fish, and you do a lattice work over top, and you kind of like squish it between two lattice, and you can do it that way. You can certainly do it on a stick if you want, but then you're probably going to lose half of it in the fire. Let's see here. With the variant and coals, so that's what the Dutch oven's for. It's like, just put the coals on top and the bottom and cook on all sides.
Yeah. You can also do that with fish when you have the skin on. Bury a whole fish in the coals, and then cook on top of it for a bit, and it partially smokes them. And then once you're ready to eat them, unbury them, spread them out, and then take the skin off.
Pierre, you've done the Dutch oven thing?
Oh, yeah. It also involved chocolate milk, so it was extra stinky. But
ooh.
No, but actually that Dutch oven from Princess Auto, we actually have one as well. And I'm like, oh, sweet. But yeah, no, we haven't tried it. And I'm like, you know what? Like, we had the power lose out a little while ago, but we kind of lived fancy, right? So we busted the generator out to make sure we didn't lose any food. And then we have a fancy cooking stove with 2 burners and an oven and our barbecue and everything. And I'm like, we were actually watching Yellowstone on the side of the house because we had a projector that works off Bluetooth, and we had stuff downloaded because we knew it was coming. So, I mean, we were living pretty large while everybody else had no power. But that might be something that, to take worthwhile is take them out, make sure they're nicely cured, not full of rust, and maybe try that out. See if we don't do a horrible job.
Yeah, I think even more so than the Dutch oven, the tripod, just to suspend stuff over the fire, is a huge benefit tool, because I mean, to shape 3 rods of metal like that after the fact in an emergency is going to be a lot tougher to do than buying the cheap set from Princess Auto or Cabela's ahead of time.
Yeah.
But cleaning all the pots and pans, I mean, we've just got one of those blue metal camping kettles. Like I can't remember the actual name of those speckled white and blue kettles. Anyway,
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, those kind of specialized camping ones.
Yeah,
so we
the old ceramic metal.
Yeah. So yeah, we keep just like a water kettle on top of the fire all the time because it gives some thermal mass when the fire goes down. It kind of keeps radiating heat, but also hot water ready to go when the fire goes out. So for dishes and pots, pans, even hot water for making tea or Ichiban noodles or whatever you need to make. I always have water on there. It seems to be a thing when we were running the wood stove in the winter. So, but during summer, it's another whole thing, right? We do have that outdoor Princess Auto stove. We've really never used that either, except for making sea salt and random other stuff like that. Just not a big use item.
Yeah. Have you guys also seen those brackets you can buy that are probably a lot smaller, but they're, I don't know, I want to say 3/4 of an inch of steel, and they've cut 3 holes on specific angles, so you can pretty much use any tree branch to make a tripod to go over a fire.
No.
So instead of like lugging around a whole tripod, even with the collapsible legs, it's just, I mean, it's probably a little bit of steel or whatever. I'd have to try and find the video and send it, but yeah, it's just a chunk of like a triangle. And it's got 3 cuts in it, and you just put the sticks through, and you can make your own tripod.
It's the same idea as the sawhorse brackets. You just put the 2x4s in, right? Which is for a fire tripod. Yeah, makes sense.
That would be something very good to look into. Yeah, and you're not, like you say, Pierre. You're not carrying around all the metal. You've got. I'm assuming it's probably a round or an oval disc, and the 3 holes in the top, and you find the branches, and away you go.
Yep. So now, yeah, instead of, I mean, I'm sure you can find a tripod that you can collapse and probably weighs next to nothing that you wouldn't even notice the difference it being in your pack. But I mean, you know, if the bracket's $20 and that's $300, well, just bring the bracket. You're already going to cook over a fire, so you're going to have wood. Go find some good branches and make your own tripod. Practice a skill.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I think that's pretty much it for today, I guess.
Ooh. That bracket you were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
$18 on Amazon.
Yeah.
Is there anything Jeff Bezos can't do? You gotta fund those penis rockets somehow, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
That right there.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you
That's
just put the
handy.
3 things.
That's super light.
Yeah. It's like $20. That's what I mean. Like, I'm like, that's not a bad idea compared to a whole tripod system, right? I mean, if you want to do the fancy backyard, then yeah, get the fancy one, but throw that in your bag and you'd be laughing.
This is $18 right now, which is 25% off of its normal $24. Add to cart.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's a good one. Cool. Well, I guess with that, I'll bring episode 178 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end.
You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please help us out and submit a review. It helps others find us. You can find me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca, or I am frequently on the Discord app.
Oh, what?
Oh,
crap.
Brad?
Sorry, guys. Sorry. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, it's at batbradcpp@gmail.com.
Cool. Darius, you want to
You
handle
can get a
that?
hold of me at any point. Yes, I can. You can get a hold of me at any point on the Discord app. And go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Pierre?
You can mostly find me on the other CPP tomorrow night, mostly talking about other stuff, but the occasional time I'm on the Discord as well. And if you ever need anything custom made, you can send an email off the wall customizing at Gmail.
You do the can opener T-shirts, right? I had to get it in there.
Yes, sir.
There we go.
Yes, sir. Yes, we made those actually like 5 minutes before Brad left the house. We were like, hold on. We went downstairs. Yeah. Me and mostly Mel did whatever, but yeah, we busted that off real quick. And so we make those.
What does it say?
Yeah.
Like, to just show like a can opener and that's it?
It's a can opener and it says Canadian Prepper Podcast.
Oh. Ooh.
Literally, the show ended and Eric was like, yeah, I want one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, you can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. And you can also find me with Pierre on Canadian Patriot Podcast, which is on iTunes and YouTube, recording Monday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society makes you do inventories just for fun. Personal note, yeah, I'll be offline for 6 weeks. Despite the fact I didn't even make fun of Eric this whole time. I'm sure I'll put up both the 6 weeks of chirping for this. But yeah, I'll be off on course. So I'll... unfortunately, won't be able to make the podcast, which is too bad.
Good luck, man.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Yeah, it's all good. Well, thanks for joining us. And until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
And keep learning.